Hi, hey Russ here. Hey, welcome back to the shop. Today I want to talk about something new I'm working on my legacy. We talked the other day, a couple different times, about using my legacy to do milling, flat milling work. And in our original discussion, we talked about using the flat table, being able to take our piece, lay it flat on the table, and milling it, or we can put it this way in the vise here to mill it off of this table, or we could take and put it in the xylus this way to mill it this way. So we can put our wood this way, but this way here was a little bit different. And the problem that you run across here is actually if the piece is too big. But one of my solutions I had come up with the other day that I showed you was this vise, where you can then take the piece and put it in here and lock it down, and now you can mill it here. So then you can mill on the edge of your pieces of wood. But what if your piece is even bigger? And now that isn't going to work too well. Not only will it be too tall, it'll be above my maximum height, but also there's a lot here. When the clamping is down here, this thing can deflect. So this has not worked very well on wide pieces. So I've decided that I'm working on a third table that's very specialized. And it's based on, believe it or not, it's based on a leg vise on a workbench. Let me show you. So this is the unit. And if you look at it, you can see the leg vise right here. And it clamps the piece right in here. So this is the leg of the leg vise. There's a valley here, a trench made so that this fits into it, and that holds this piece somewhat in place. Then you have your wing nut that you put on to tighten it down on there. And you say, well, how would I use that on the legacy? Well, actually the leg vise is setting horizontal instead of vertical. And this is what you got. In fact, to make this work right, we actually have built mirror images of two of them to use. And this table here, the combination of both pieces, actually works quite well for doing plywood or any board on edge. Let me show you real quick that the way this kind of works is this goes back and forth here, and you have your pin board is actually on the back side right here. This is the pin board area, which is on top. So when you set this in here, this is your pin board area for your leg vise. I'll show you how that works in a second. But I also took and I put in here an array of holes in the clamping area. And that is going to have a very good function too. Let me show you how this all works, and then you'll understand it a little bit better. Now I will tell you, this is a work in progress. I just got it to this point yesterday evening, and I've been thinking about it, and I think maybe there's some changes I probably want to make to it, but more importantly, what I wanted to do is show you what I've done so far, how it works, and then if you have any ideas or any suggestions on how to tweak it, I'm more than willing to listen to them and see if it will help me to come to a final prototype. There's a lot of things I still want to do to it. I got to put sandpaper on this surface and on the jaw to help with the holding power. Also, I haven't drilled my holes to put my anchors to be able to anchor this down like this table has yet. because I'm still kind of working on it. So right now what I did today is show you how it works. I just clamping it down with some quick clamps, just so you can see examples of how this works. So that after a couple of days, I'm going to sit down and think about this for a couple of days, put it aside, and then if you have any ideas about it, you can then suggest that over the next day or two. So when I go back to work on it, to try to come up with a little better version than what this is, I think hopefully we'll do a little bit better then at that point. So anyway, the way this works is you can put just about any piece you want in here. And now, not only can you do it flat and put it in this way and that one, you can also put things on the edge using this vise. This array of holes here are very useful for you to hold your piece at the right height. For example, if I put one in here and one in here, now I take my piece, and I should mention here that this has a board right here that goes up against the rail, and that's how you square this up. So when I set it in here and I push it up against there, this is now all square to my legacy. Then I can take my piece and I would lock it down at 3 points is my intention, so that then this is put in place, and you have the two of them sitting here. They're a mirror image of each other. So now I can take my piece and put it there, and my height is defined every time when I put the piece down in here. I can bring this up against it, and I look for where my pin should go, and it looks like I'm going to put my pin in number 2 hole. So I put this one in number 2 hole, and now this is almost ready. Now the other thing you want to do is you want to have your x-axis on this. You want this thing to be in the same place this way, so as you change the piece out and put another one in, you can register it in the same exact place every time. So I use the top hole here, and I put a short dowel in here. So when I set that there, and when I push it up against this dowel, this is now a registered point. This thing will be put in there every time in the same place. I pull my piece up, and I spin my clamp down, and a little bit of snugging, and this piece is now set. I want to change the piece out to a different one. I can take that loose, grab my next piece, drop it in there, register it, snug it down, and that quick I change out to a second piece. So this works real well to holding your pieces and registering them. If I want to take this piece, and let's say I want to do it this way and work on the end of the board instead. Well, now I can take my 2 dowels and put them in the same holes in alignment this way, in 2 of the holes. Now my piece can be put here and register there against here. And now to register it up and down, so that every time I'm wanting to do this, I put a piece in there. I want it to be the same, but I don't control this yet. So I can just take another piece. My base down here is also parallel to the whole legacy. So if I set this spacer in here, I set this board in here, now I can register that board to where I want based on how big a spacer I put down there. I put that in there. Now I'll take it and register it here. Lock it down. And now this board is now ready. It's clamped down with both clamps, and this board is now ready for me to mill in here. If it needs a little higher, I change the height of my spacer under here to register this. This thing is now registered, and anytime I take this piece out and put it in on the other end, or another piece, and lock it back down, I'm going to be exactly registered in the same point again. So setting this up for however I want to do my cut, whether it's on the edge or on the end of the board, these two together work together kind of like two leg vices or like a Moxon vise. And so it makes it real easy and quick to lock down a piece, no matter what size it is. If your piece was, instead of being 12 inches long, if it's 2 foot long instead, let's say I want to do this piece. Now this piece is pretty wide. So, and when I put this one in here, I'm going to pull my dowels out, get them out of my way, until I decide where I want to put those. So now I look at this piece and say, how do I want to put this one in here? Well, let's put a register over here to stop it going this direction. So we'll put this in that hole right there. Now, better yet, let's put this in the end hole right here, the furthest one that way. Now, if I register here, now I can bring this over here, get it to where I know it's going to be able to clamp it. Now I can clamp my piece down at this position, and now this length board will work in my vise just that quick instead of the short one. So when I put this in here, that's too short. If I take and put the piece here as a spacer and put it in, now my piece is almost ready. At this point, I look at it, my clamp, I think maybe what I should do is I'm going to move this down one hole. So I move from number 2 to number 1 hole. Now I push it in, lock down my clamp, push it all the way against my dowel, down against the spacer there, and I snug these up. This piece is now ready to mill on the side. That quick, I changed the setting from holding this piece in like this. I now changed to this piece in just a matter of a minute or so. So I can now mill this. So it's real easy to now mill boards no matter what length they are. That's just determined by how wide apart I put these. If I want to take the board like this and mill the end of it, I can very easily take a nice wide board and put it in here. Now to do this one, and I want to make sure this board is level this way, so now what I'm going to do is, instead of 1 pin, I'm going to put 2 pins in here, one right directly below the other one on the 2 dowels, so that this registers now against those. And now I know I'm exactly perpendicular. So now I can take this, loosen this one up, bring it over, and put it so that I can grab it with both clamps. Whoops. And now I can clamp this board on end, and this board now I can lock it down, register it here, and this board is now in the same place. So if I'm doing multiple boards, I can take this one out, take my next board, set it down in there, register it against the 2 dowels and up against the plate, snug it down, and in just a minute or so, I don't have to change any of my settings from my zeroing out my X, Y, or Z axis. They'll still be the same, and I change up this piece to another piece instantly. So the double table with the horizontal leg vise, mirrors of them, is a good, to me it looks like the right ticket to hold pieces on edge and on the end easily. So And doesn't matter how wide the piece is. The wider it is, you just change out where you put your pin, just like you would in any leg vise, so that this comes out pretty close to parallel. It doesn't have to be parallel because these two are independent of each other. On a regular leg vise, you want it to be flat against your piece, and so you have to have your holes incremented. But on this setup, you really only want the very front edge of this piece. That front corner is what's going to bite in. And it doesn't have to be flat against here. So when I pull this down and I snug it down, it's registering against this back plate, which is exactly parallel. And it's 90 degrees to my tabletop. So it's squared off so that once I lock this down, these clamps, this piece is held in, and I know it's straight and square to the way I want it. So when I set up my cut, I know that I'll be going straight all the way through it this way, because this is true all the way along parallel to my x-axis. This distance here is parallel to my y-axis this way all the way through, and the z-axis is parallel all the way through. So I can instantly change out my piece and do batch pieces. I can do as many as I want with this setup, and when I'm ready to change the setup, it only takes me a minute to set up for the next task at hand. So that's what this table does. It's a double table with two horizontal leg vises, and it is just roughed in. I have some things about it I don't like, but I think I'm going to use it for a little bit here for a few days, see how it does, and if I need to, I'll probably be revamping it slightly. And I wanted to show you where I was at this point with it. And so if you have any ideas or any suggestions, think about this, and we'll probably do something a little more in the next few days to improve this, to come up with what I would call a final working version. So that's it for now. The only thing I want to mention to you is that once I get this table completely developed, I do have an idea that I want to mount a laser, X and Y laser, on my Legacy, so that I can set my piece down and I'll have a target line both on my X and my Y, so I know exactly when I go down where that router bit is going to make contact. So I think a laser would make a big improvement on this, and I have some ideas of how I'm going to do it. As soon as I do that, I'll show it to you and let you see it. I also want to try to do something to improve the rotary table. The rotary table is very rudimentary. There isn't no thrills with it or anything. Trying to mount a piece of that, it's kind of a pain. So I have some ideas of how to do something with that turntable. But before I do the turntable, I want to get my laser set up so that when I set my turntable down, I'll know from the lasers that my turntable is exactly where it needs to be to do what I'm going to do. So coming soon will be a laser mount on this, and also some vast improvements on the turntable. And once I've done all that, then there are some ideas I have on mounting your piece in here, and I have some ideas of how to mount it in here and to do incremental turning on it. I know there's been some complaints about how to get that thing to align exactly where you want to start so that it lines up to your hole to begin with. That a lot of times you're not true. Once you lock it in one of the holes, it really should be at a half hole increment to start with. So I have some ideas of how to get that to work properly. But I'll go over all that as we get there. That's going to be down the road. So I am thinking about that too, so stay tuned and start putting your thinking cap on that part, because again, I think that other people's input would be nice to have as I go along here. So this is my table. I wanted to show you kind of where I'm at with it and where I'm going. I hope that you guys will help me kind of get this to where it will be to be a final product. I like what I have so far. It does seem to do the job at hand, and that is taking wide pieces and being able to mill them on the edge instead of just the flat surface. Big improvement. So If you have any questions about this video or any suggestions, please leave the comments below. If you like this video, please say so. But most importantly, please come back again for the next one. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.